Hey, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to the GM. It is your guy Boulanger. And up next on the GM, we're going to be discussing the Baltimore Ravens versus the Commanders Week 2 matchup. Do me a quick favor, hit like. If it's the first time watching the GM, please hit subscribe. Also hit the notification bell so that you get updates when we upload new content. Let's go. So I know most of us watched the Ravens versus the Commanders game last night. And in fact, probably most of the NFL world watched the Ravens versus Commanders game last night because it was Monday Night Football, nationally televised game. And I have five main takeaways from last night's game, all positive. Okay. The first takeaway that I have from last night's game is it was a really good matchup, not boring, not redundant, and full of highlights, full of drama, full of um, really good offense, but also gritty defense. And so I think the game holistically was really competitive, and I think both teams had a really good showing. I think both starting quarterbacks played well last night. And speaking of those quarterbacks, I think that um, from the Commanders' side of things, I think the Commanders should be excited about what they have in Sam Howell. Granted, Sam Howell was playing against the Baltimore Ravens second defense, but he still had a good showing. I mean, he had a really, really good showing, really efficient. I think he completed about 78% of his passes, and the Baltimore Ravens didn't give him uh, anything easy, really. He really kind of had to stand in the pocket and wait for something to come open. Um, and I think that he did a really good job. So shout out to Sam Howell and the Commanders. Good showing by Sam Howell. Josh Johnson, as it pertains to the quarterback play for the Baltimore Ravens, I think that if they're going to keep three quarterbacks, I think Josh Johnson secured his spot last night. He didn't look as well in the game number one, but last night Josh Johnson looked poised. He looked confident, and he definitely looked like he had command of the Baltimore Ravens offense. He made good throws. He made timely decisions, and he put the ball where it needed to be. With the one exception of being rushed, had a guy in his face, and he just threw the ball up. Because James Prochet had beat this guy, he was gonna be open for a touchdown, but because he couldn't step into that throw, he just kind of lofted it up there, and the Commanders defender came down with an interception, returned it for 57 yards. That was probably the only mistake that Josh Johnson made. I'm not saying he didn't make others, but that was the big costly mistake that probably secures that win last night for sure. If James Prochet, who was open, makes that play, if Josh Johnson was able to put a little bit more on that ball. But with that play exception, I thought Josh Johnson played really well. And I think he locked up himself that third spot if the Baltimore Ravens are going to keep three quarterbacks. In fact, if I'm honest, depending upon the severity of Tyler Huntley's injury, he could move himself into the number two position. Because again, there was some question if Tyler Huntley was the right fit for the Todd Monken system. I thought Tyler Huntley did enough last week, of course, to keep himself on this roster, keep himself in that number two QB spot. But Josh Johnson did play very, very well in the first half of last night's game. So overall, I thought the game was really good. I really did. My number two takeaway is a Ravens takeaway. I think the Ravens' depth, both offensively and defensively, excuse me, is pretty solid. I know that Sam Howell looked like um, Joe Montana last night, where he was just dealing, standing in the pocket, making timely passes, making some plays with his feet and stuff like that. But I thought that because the Baltimore Ravens were playing defensively, most of their second guys for sure. Now, some of these guys will probably be a starter, if the season was to start next week, such as a Kevin Seymour and a Darius Washington. Um, but I thought that the Baltimore Ravens secondary um, played very, very well, showing their depth. I think that offensively, the Baltimore Ravens' offensive depth showed up pretty well. Although the QB did have some pressure in his face and things like that, for the most part, we held our blocks long enough to get some good run plays off. We held up to get some passes downfield, and I thought our depth showed up last night because we were really playing first unit against second unit, meaning the Baltimore Ravens had their second unit primarily on the field, other than Zay Flowers on the field, whereas the Commanders played most of their starting lineups, both offensively and defensively. And the Baltimore Ravens, both on both sides of the ball, showed up pretty well. So I think our depth is a little more solid than previously thought. Definitely better performance game two than game one overall. Okay. Um, and so I think when we mix in who is going to actually be the starting group, I think that gives us a little more foundation to lean on. So I like what I saw holistically from both sides of the football as it pertains to depth. Okay. My third takeaway is going to be Zay Flowers. Circle him, highlight him. It's going to be him. I think coming into last night's game, he didn't have anything to prove necessarily. I think the fan base is sold on Zay Flowers. I think the league, for the most part, is sold on Zay Flowers. But the one thing that I really, really saw, which is what formed this takeaway last night from Zay Flowers, is that he is as advertised. Capital ADVERTISE, advertised. D, excuse me. I think that in training camp, mini camp, whoever has been defending him has been at a disadvantage, and he just carries that over into game. And whoever's defending him is at a disadvantage. He was the Baltimore Ravens' best receiver last night, and I don't mean because of his performance. I mean just based on uh, ability. He was certainly their best receiver last night, and then he showed that in his play. And so the Commanders had an opportunity to make a decision. Say, you know what, if we just cover Zay, because nobody else is really going to get anything done. If we just cover him, we can keep this offense in check. But no matter who they put on Zay, he was leaving them in the dust. And here's why I'm highlighting Zay is because he never shorts you on effort. He never takes a play off. And when he does get the ball in his hand, it's always exciting, which is all things we believed and heard about him from college, and it's just on full display. And I think that Zay is going to be the leader, hands down, in yak yards. But I also think Zay is going to have a better season than maybe any of us expected. And here's why. Going into the game last night, you knew he was the number one option. Okay. And he was mixed in with, you know, basically guys fighting for the sixth spot, seventh spot, eighth spot. So he was with third and fourth string guys. Okay. And his ability shone through. So imagine mixing him in with the number one guys who are starting: Odell, Bateman, Andrews, even an Isaiah Likely. Um, I think that um, he's going to really be uncoverable. It's going to be difficult for defenses to figure out how to defend the Ravens offense, especially if we're healthy. Okay. And so, man, I don't need to see anything else from Zay. John Harbaugh, uh, offensive coaching, don't put Zay in game three. I don't even care if Lamar Jackson plays in game three. I don't want to see no more Zay. We've seen enough. Okay, I don't see need to see anything else. I need for you guys to place him in bubble wrap, box him up, and deliver him um week one in Houston, or for the Houston game, so that he arrives there 100%, because I think that he is going to be special. All right. My number four takeaway is that there are a lot of guys who showed ability that they had not shown this offseason and also preseason. One of those guys is so this would be stock up Charlie Kolar. We all heard about Charlie Kolar's ability to catch the ball, and we heard that he has bulked up this offseason, all those kind of things. But Charlie Kolar is really, really athletic, has some good speed, and has some good hands. And he just knows how to get open as well. You know, he made a big 31, 33 yard catch. I can't remember which one it is, 30 plus yard catch. Um, that he was just like right place, right time, good hands. It was excellent. It was an excellent play. It was an excellent showing from Charlie Kolar last night. So stock up Charlie Kolar. It's kind of the first time he's kind of been highlighted um, as the go-to guy. You know what I'm saying? Because there's always been Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely. So Charlie Kolar had an opportunity last night to show, and he did that. Okay, so stock up Charlie Kolar. Another guy, stock up is Melvin Gordon. Melvin Gordon has kind of been on that fringe fourth spot, and um, coming into last night, I was unsure. I was unsure if they were going to keep Melvin Gordon, if they were going to use Melvin Gordon. But come out, man, Melvin Gordon was being used. I think he had 8 carries, 34 yards, I believe. So he had like a four yard per carry average. It's not elite like that 5 yard per carry average some of the Ravens have, but it was still good. He ran strong. He ran with authority. He ran it with intention. The only downside that I saw from Melvin Gordon is that he let a 175-pound Emmanuel Forbes bring him to the ground on 3rd and 1. Melvin Gordon is roughly 210, 215, somewhere in there, which means he outweighs Emmanuel Forbes by about 40 pounds. He should have been able to run over or through him enough to edge out 1 yard, but Emmanuel Forbes stopped him cold. And so that was disappointing, but for the most part, he ran hard and he ran with some authority. And I think with that performance last night, he may have held off Keaton Mitchell, and I'll explain that with my with my fifth take here in a second. So stock up Melvin Gordon. Um, Let me think. Stock up Justice Hill. I think there was no question that Justice Hill has had a really good off season, spring workouts, OTAs, also training camp. especially with J.K. been out. Justice Hill has probably been the best back on the Ravens roster. He came out last night. He was running strong, made some big runs, caught the ball. So I was really, really impressed. Justice Hill has not taken his foot off the gas at all. And for me, there was never a question if he was going to make this roster. And I think he just stamped that last night as well. Okay. So stock up Justice Hill. Um, Let me think. Stock up Kayvon Seymour. Kayvon Seymour, was just kind of in the right place at the right time for the most part. Um, he was, in good position defending passes. Made a big play on a deep ball down. If you're looking at the screen, it would have been on the right side. Um, and so I thought he played well. And I think at this point, Kevin Seymour is kind of pushing for a starting role. In context, a starting role because the other guys are injured and haven't been able to get healthy enough to get back on the field. And so somebody has to start. And I think Kevin Seymour is saying, you know what, coach, I'll keep proving myself. And I think that um, he did well last night. Stock up Darius Washington, a guy who I said put on your watch list. Darius Washington has been around Baltimore for about 3 years, and he just continues to make play after play after play, always around the ball. And last night was no different, man. I thought Darius Washington probably played the best game I've ever seen him play, and maybe that's just due to opportunity. I think just the opportunity presented itself, excuse me, and he took that opportunity. He had seven tackles, had some good plays defensed. He came up, man. He made some big sticks. He made some good stops in the run game. And so I thought, man, Darius Washington played like the best defensive player on that roster um, last night. So stock up Darius Washington. Um, Stock up Jeremiah Moon. Had a big sack last night. Just beat this guy off the jump and came up with a sack. Um, had some other tackles included. So I thought he had a solid game, especially as he's trying to make the roster. And with Tyus Bowser's injury, I think that he will certainly be in the mix for that roster spot. Stock up Malik Ham. Didn't have a lot of tackles last night. I think he had three, but he did force a fumble, which is really good. Didn't have any sacks last night, but he still made his presence felt, which that's what you want from a UDFA. And so I say stock up, not skyrocketing, but maybe just still stock up Malik Ham. Um, Let me think. Anybody else that I'm missing? I don't think so. Um, so I think that's my fourth take. My fifth take is stock down. Stock down um, goes to um, those guys who are injured. I think that not being able to get healthy is, in some ways, going to cost some guys a roster spot who could have made this team. Guys like Arthur Millette, guys like Pepe Williams. Um, there's another guy I got on my mind. I can't think of his name right now. Um, but just some guys, man, who has not been able to get healthy at positions of need. It's not their fault, but I think their stock is down because now we're 2 games into preseason and other guys are stepping up. And you can't displace a guy who is performing well for a guy who has not performed just because he hasn't been there. And so I think that stock down to the guys that are injured. and just not able to validate their spot on this roster because some of those injured guys are guys who are fighting for a roster spot. Stock down Keaton Mitchell. Now this is going to be a little controversy or controversial, but I say stock down to Keaton Mitchell. Here's why. I thought that he had a solid game, but stock down because I don't think he's going to have a real opportunity to make this roster, which was my fear all the way back coming into training camp, and I stated that in a video. See, it's not stock down because he had a bad performance, because his potential to break a big play is electric, like we seen on that 31-yard carry, right? That should have been a play stopped in the backfield or for no gain. But because of his speed and his quickness, he just outran those guys and took it for 31 yards. And and so that's something that some other players don't at the running back position don't have to offer. But I think it's stocked down because I don't think he's going to get a real opportunity to grab a roster spot because of what we saw from Melvin Gordon last night. It was very, very clear that the Baltimore Ravens wanted to see what they had in Melvin Gordon. So I really believe they're going to keep 4 running backs. And because of Melvin Gordon's touches, his carries, um, I think that kind of speaks to Keaton Mitchell's potential. But I'm gonna tell you something that happened last night that may bode well for the Ravens. It may not bode well for Keaton Mitchell, but it may bode well for the Ravens um, overall. Keaton Mitchell left the game with a shoulder injury last night. Now it's not believed to be serious. But let's say he has to miss week 3. The Ravens could slide Keaton Mitchell on the PUP list and keep him. You see, because if they release or cut Keaton Mitchell, some team is going to grab him and put him on their 53-man roster just based on potential. He will fit into that 53rd spot just based on potential. And I don't think the Baltimore Ravens can afford to do that only because of injuries that make a need for players at other positions so much more vital. But with this injury, if he doesn't play game 3, they could literally slide him on the PUP list and keep him out of reach for other teams. So just so so keep watch for that, man. That's what I'm hoping, because I believe that if this thing plays out like we're watching it, I think Melvin Gordon is going to grab that 4th running back spot. Even though Keaton Mitchell has more upside long term, I think that's what it's looking like, because you saw the intentionality with Melvin Gordon's carries, touches, whatever you want to call it, in that first half. So I think it's stocked down for Keaton Mitchell again, not because of his performance, but because of what it looks like the Ravens are aiming to do with Melvin Gordon. Okay, and the bonus take is this: the Baltimore Ravens have the potential to do something good this year. Even though we have some injuries and so on and so forth, this team has built a depth um, that can cause sustainability, and so they have a potential to do something real good this year. And I think anything less than the AFC Championship will be disappointing. I'm saying that right now after week 2. And I'm saying that because the depth was on display last night, and I think they performed well. Even though there were some misses and things like that, I think that we have to acknowledge that we saw some good things from the Ravens. Oh! I forgot this guy in the stock up, Talon Wallace, right? I said coming into the game. Well, I said in the video earlier this week that there were 3 guys competing for the wide receiver 6 spot: Treadwell, Black, and Wallace. And I thought that Treadwell was leading that spot going into last night's game. And I said somebody has a potential to surpass or take the lead the other players. Well, Tariq Black, I think, is out. Two preseason games, hasn't done a whole lot. I think he had one catch last night, maybe two catches. I can't remember, but it wasn't much. But here we are with Talon Wallace catching a touchdown pass, back shoulder throw, 2 weeks straight. Plus his special teams contribution, I think, has him leading that sixth spot last night because I'm not sure if I even remember hearing Laquan Treadwell's name mentioned at all last night. I can't say that I didn't. I can't remember every aspect of the game, but I don't remember seeing or hearing his name called last night. And so I think Talon Wallace has taken that lead. And I'm really glad to see Talon Wallace do well. Even if he's on display for another team, I think he's played well enough to have a real chance to make somebody's roster. But I think he's the leader now for that sixth spot. So let me know what you guys want me to know, man. Let me know anybody else you guys have stock up, stock down for. Um, Let me know what you think about my take on Keaton Mitchell. Do you think Melvin Gordon looks like he's the leader for that fourth spot just based on what we saw last night? I'm your guy Boulanger. This is the GM, and we're out.